Li Yueru wants a trade. We have new information about how and why. Plus, we get to talk to Jacy Sheldon of the Connecticut Sun. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. Over 340,000 of you showed up in May alone, and it's probably higher. I have to run the full crunch of numbers at the end of it. The way we show up for you 6 days a week. It is, of course, not just me. It is the incredible team over at The Next, thenexthoops.com, where we have over 100 reported pieces every single month. Subscribe, $9 a month or $72 a year, and you can make sure that you are supporting the work that's being done. The work is everywhere. Jackie Powell has all the information about what you need to know. Why now does Li Yueru want a trade, and what's going to happen? But first, we're going to take you to Bella Munson, who was live on the scene in Seattle last night, telling us about the night that Li Yueru and the Seattle Storm had.
Bella Munson here for Locked On Women's Basketball in Seattle, where the Seattle Storm just broke their 3-game losing streak with an 83-77 victory over the Dallas Wings. Today it was the bench that made a big difference. Li Yueru, Zia Cook, Dominique Malunga, and Erica Wheeler combined for 30 bench points compared to Dallas's 14.
They complement what we need, but also at times they create a different type of tempo to our game.
Wheeler was particularly instrumental in her minutes, finishing with an efficient 11 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, 1 block, 1 steal, and 0 turnovers.
I mean, it's all gas, no breaks, on the court, in the locker room, in practice. That's just who he is. He understands, the moments in this league. She also understands her role. She understands how to be a great teammate. And with that, it just the energy becomes contagious, and really, really good things happen on the floor.
If you want to read more, head over to thenexthoops.com, where I recently wrote about how Wheeler has found her comfort and made an impact in Seattle.
And joining us to talk about the impact that Li Yueru has made, but also, as the news is broken, that Li Yueru is looking for a trade, is Jackie Powell. Jackie, I understand you have some information that hasn't been reported yet about how this has all come about. Take us through it.
Yeah, so obviously there were some reports earlier today. I know Christina Williams at iHeart Radio reported that Li Yueru is requesting a trade, but just some more context as to why. So as you all could hear in Bella's report from the Storm against the Dallas Wings, Li Yueru was mentioned as someone who contributed quite a lot off the bench. But if you take a look at exactly what those contributions were and for how long, so she played in 6 minutes or 5 minutes and 45 seconds, scored, it was 6 points. She hit 2 threes. And so if you take a look at those minutes, she was only substituted in when Dallas substituted in Tiara McCowan. If you look at Tiara McCowan's minutes, she had 5 minutes and 20 seconds. So there is some frustration from a source that is familiar with Li Yueru's thinking.
Can I ask just related to that? It sounds like there's frustration that extends beyond just, you can understand a player saying, I made 2 threes. Why did I only get 5 minutes and change to play? But are there other factors that are going into this? I know that the dynamic with Chinese players coming to play over here often is more complicated.
Yes, that is a part of this too. I had heard earlier that Li Yueru was considering not going to the Asia Cup, which is typically a tournament that happens the same year that Eurobasket does. And it's some years it's a qualifier for the Olympics, other years it's not. But there was a thought of wanting to commit to the W. But the thing about how playing time has something to do with this is that, and this is a trend that we've seen with Chinese WNBA players over the years. And if the Chinese Federation notices that one of their players is not playing meaningful minutes, they get in touch and they want to know why. And they want that player instead to be working with the national team in China.
Can I ask, when we think about this from Seattle's perspective, Seattle's got to put together the best roster top to bottom where people are getting opportunities. But it feels at some level like there's a little bit of a logjam at the 5. Is that the way you see it as well?
That is absolutely how I see it. And, you know, a trade here could create a win for both sides. The Seattle Storm have 3 centers. They have Jacy Sheldon, they have Li Yueru, and they have Dominique Malunga. That's really difficult. You know, Seattle doesn't have, they maybe have 2 power forwards in Gabby Williams and Nneka Ogwumike, and those 2 play a lot of minutes. But the Storm don't have a lot of guard or wing shooting. So if this trade is going to go through, if it happens, I would not be surprised if Seattle gets some shooting in return from the guard or wing spot.
Interesting. And again, like you said, Dominique Malunga, very important as a critical part of this team. We've talked about that, you know, dating back to draft night. What does the timeline look like for that? And what opportunities does that potentially create for Dom and also for Jacy?
I mean, a successful trade here will create more opportunities for Dominique Malunga. I mean, her minutes have been increasing as of late. I think Seattle should be experimenting with her more just because she has a very confident 3-ball. I've been concerned about how the Storm are involving Jacy in the offense. That's something that definitely I've been confused by. I mean, Jacy has been a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and a lot of people predicted her to be on that same path, and we just haven't seen that this year. And so I just wonder, you know, how her involvement in the offense maybe impacts some of that defensive production as well.
I mean, from my perspective, you're talking about 2 players. Jacy has been presented in different ways as the future of the franchise. And, you know, Dom Malunga, 2nd overall pick in the 2025 draft. So the idea of creating those opportunities is significant, but all 3 really are 5s, along with Li Yueru as well. Is there any sort of timeline that we should look for when and how this needs to get done? I know there's the trade deadline comes up mid-year, but there's also a time in which contracts become guaranteed. I believe that's July 13th. Is that right?
Midpoint is July 13th, and then it is August 7th.
Okay.
That is the trade deadline.
But presumably the first one rather than the second one is probably even more important from a Seattle perspective when you look at their overall cap room.
Yes, because they're a team that does not have a lot, and they have 11 on roster, including Katie Lou Samuelson, who will not be playing.
So frustrating that she continues to face the injury bug. Well, bottom line here, how does this change the way you think about Seattle going forward as a contender? We had Jordan Robinson on the show yesterday talking about the Seattle was kind of in that 2nd-tier group, but even then it felt like Phoenix is ahead of them, Las Vegas clearly ahead of them, and the Atlanta Dream, who have been surprising a lot of people early on, is ahead of them. Do you think this is the type of thing that could create bigger consequences for Seattle's trajectory here in 2025?
The fact that there's a player requesting a trade?
Yeah.
It really depends on how they handle this. And as we've seen as of late, it has been handled in a very interesting way. I mean, the fact that this is the 2nd time in less than a year that a player is, you know, asking for a trade, and that's become public. I mean, it's very hard for a team to try to contend when there is a lot of outside noise. We've seen that happen in Las Vegas, although, they use that to help motivate them.
They did.
But I think the thing about the Seattle Storm is their shot profile. It still is not where it needs to be if you are going to contend in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
They're making their threes. They're just taking less of them. I believe they are 12th out of 13 when it comes to three-point attempts per game. All those teams that you've mentioned, Phoenix, the top two in the Liberty and the Lynx, the Atlanta Dream, the Las Vegas Aces, these are all teams that are taking a lot of threes per game.
It is going to be absolutely fascinating. Jackie Powell, thank you for this wonderful reporting. And we will be back with Jacy Sheldon, who has been through a lot over the past year, playing for Dallas, coaching at Ohio State, and now playing for Connecticut. She dishes on what it's like to be a WNBA player who gets traded. This is the human side of that. Back with much more. I'm Howard Megdal. You're listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. But first, Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by OpenPhone. Let me tell you something. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. It's something that we navigate every day over at the Next. You have an urgent need, you need to run out, you miss a call, and what happens? The person probably has moved on to somebody else. And that's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. Now, OpenPhone has a deal for you guys. 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. Again, 20% off your first 6 months. That's openphone.com/lockedonnba. And if you are existing numbers at another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Howard Megdal here, Locked On Women's Basketball, back with Jacy Sheldon of the Connecticut Sun. Been a busy year. No real offseason for you, I guess, when it comes to also taking on a coaching role at Ohio State, a little bit of everything. But the place I want to start is just what have been sort of the biggest takeaways for you here early days playing with the Connecticut Sun this season?
Yeah, I think it's been an adjustment. It's been really fun. Just getting to know this new coaching staff, the new group that we have. The girls have been amazing, and I think we're just, learning how to play with each other, offensively and defensively, still learning these schemes. And the more we play together, the more it's going to click for us. And I'm excited and love Connecticut so far. So I've really enjoyed being here.
Defining yourself is obviously a challenge, in part because you come to the table with an ability to find your teammates extremely well, terrific shooter off the ball. Wondering how you sort of see that definition so far here within the Sun offense.
Yeah, I think it's a big mix of, like you said, finding your teammates when they're open, making that extra pass, and finding when to take your shots and when to hit those open ones and when to create for yourself and others. And I think within our offense, it's easy to do and it's fun to do. Our offense here that we play kind of complements everyone's game, so it's been fun to kind of navigate. But that's the hard part, right? Is figuring out when to make those decisions, how to read the defense, what coverages they're getting in, and then obviously how to react to those. So that's been a challenge, and it's been a lot of fun so far.
Early on, you're saying, if you'll permit me to get a little bit nerdy, and assist percentage is up year over year. Your steal percentage is practically doubled. Have you felt that, it's a cliche the way people talk about it at times, but that slowing down of the game, the way in which you hear so many people talk about it as they evolve as a player?
I have, and I'm such a fast-paced player, and I like to do everything fast. And I think so far this season, I've really been trying to slow down and let the game come to me, and it does work. I think just being able to change speeds and being able to slow down sometimes and use that speed to my advantage even more has been a focus of mine. But absolutely. And then also just being more confident going into year two, being more comfortable. I think that shows out there too. So those are two things that have, helped me in that aspect.
It's always a challenge to define yourself in the WNBA in a new way, but to do it in two teams and two systems in 2 years, what are some things you do that kind of keep you grounded as you think about what you want Jacy Sheldon, the player, to be?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that you can keep the same and control what you can control if you may. I think it's one of the things is communication. Another thing is confidence and going out there and playing as hard as you can is the other. And I think those three things consistently, no matter what team you're on, you can do. You can affect the game defensively, on and off the ball defense, and then offensively, like I said, it's navigating when to create for your teammates and when to take the shot for yourself. So I think that's the part sometimes that takes a minute. But those other things, like I said, the controllables are things that no matter what team you're on, you can control and you can contribute in some way. And in this league, that's really important.
I don't think people fully understand what it means to be traded and, to get that news and to process it. And to, I think people miss the human element to it. I wonder if you can kind of take us through. I know that can't have been easy, right? But like what that moment was like, who are you talking to? Like how are you sort of processing that? And doing it at a time, obviously you're also working this other job.
Yeah. That news came from my agents. I found out a couple of days before. I think it was, publicized, but
right.
It was, it's something that I'm a positive thinker. So when I heard the news, I was kind of thinking positively, like this is going to be a great opportunity. It's a great team. It's a great organization with great people. And that's kind of how I looked at it. I looked at it as kind of excitement when I heard the news. And honestly, for me, after finishing my rookie year, I can imagine people who have been on the same team for multiple years. It is hard. For me, that was my first year. It was kind of my intro and it's kind of, all right, let's do it again. And that's kind of how I looked at it. So wasn't as hard, didn't take it as hard as, some may when they've been on a team for so long. As I kind of looked at it as, all right, here we go again. New start, new beginning. And just like I said, control what you can control through that process. And I love everyone here. I love the organization, the staff, the team. It feels like home. They treat everyone like family. And it's been a pretty smooth transition.
I've had the privilege of covering you dating back to college days. So the thing that I thought of when I saw this news come in was like, oh, well, she'll be near family. She'll be home at that time as she was doing it. Did that help? Did that play a part in it? Or and maybe I'm wrong about this because now when you play in the Big Ten, you're playing everywhere. Yeah. And so in your role at Ohio State, you could be playing on the West Coast or the East Coast.
Oh, yeah. It definitely helped to be home during that. It's actually funny. My dad, I woke up that morning and my dad just kind of made a comment like, I have a feeling you're going to get traded today. And of course me, I'm like, what are you talking about? And then sure enough, I get the call later. So it was good to be around family during that for sure. Yeah, sure. They think positively as well. So there was really no negative thoughts, to be honest, when that news was heard. Just excitement, and obviously was excited to get here.
There's also the positivity of you're at a Sun team that is in so many ways redefining who they are in real time and getting the opportunity to start anew. That said, there are veteran voices on this team, obviously. So I'm wondering, who are some vets that you've been leaning on and conversation you've been having, as you guys are figuring out the path forward for the Sun?
Yeah, we have a lot of really great vets on this team. Tina and Marina are obviously two that from the beginning have been really welcoming and helped, us younger girls navigate everything, including on and off the court things. Maria, it's great to have her on this team. It's great to have her back in the league. I've talked to her a lot just about her experience and she's been on a lot of different teams. So it's fun learning from her and obviously on the court as well. But we have a lot of people who have been in this league a long time. Tina has been in this league a long time and knows the ups and downs of it. Has been on really good teams and some teams that aren't so good. Has been through a lot. So I think just having those experiences especially helps us young kids, but I think it helps everyone in that locker room. So it's been fun to learn from them.
Marina, there's a lot in her game that I feel like are areas that overlap with yours, particularly on the defensive end. Frankly, going back to her Notre Dame days, I feel like people did not talk enough about the defensive intensity that she brings. There's obviously something we've talked about your steal percentage dating back to college, right? Do you feel as if there's opportunities for you to learn from even just like the technique of what she operates on ball as a perimeter defender?
Absolutely. Actually, when I got here in training camp, when she was guarding me, I remember being surprised at how well she guarded. She's a great on-ball defender, really good off-ball defender, really good communicator, which in our defense is really important. So it's been really beneficial for the younger girls, just hearing her voice and kind of navigating us through that. And obviously on the offensive side, she's outstanding. And hopefully I can spread the floor for a little bit, hopefully get my man to stick with me, create more room for her to navigate and vice versa. So I think it's been really fun playing with her.
on the offensive end, the shooting has not been where it was last year. There's no real question in my mind. It's just a matter of when, not if. And we see this again and again. We see a lot of shooters. Lexi Hull's a great example in my mind of somebody who, as the minutes start to pile up, you get more of an opportunity because the reps come. And you go back, if you look at your splits, when you're playing 1 to 10 minutes, the shooting percentage is lower than when you're playing 10 to 20, and that's lower than playing 20 to 30. Are there things you can do as a shooter to feel like you're mid-game by the time you come in?
I think it's just confidence, to be honest. I think it's the only way your percentage is going to go up if you keep shooting. So shooting 1 to 2 threes a game probably isn't going to help you that much, and that's kind of what I'm navigating through right now. Right. The more minutes you play, the more shots you're going to get, and if you get 2 shots a game, it's not even fair to judge your shooting percentage off of that. So I think just continue to keep shooting, and even the best shooters in the world, Curry misses shots. I remember Curry went on a crazy streak last year, and if Curry can do it, anybody can do it. So I think the only way to fix that is to keep shooting, and I think that's just a shooter's mindset. And then coming off the bench, I think, like I said, I think it's all confidence. You obviously have to be ready, get yourself ready in warm-ups, but once you're in the game, you got to be ready to go physically and mentally, and then just be confident when you go out there.
From an experiential perspective, I feel like Connecticut gets a bad rap. And, when you can drive to Mystic, when you can experience a lot of things off the court, there are real opportunities to enjoy it. What's been your favorite part of that so far?
Yeah, I've explored some beaches that have been very nice. I love laying out. I love getting sun. So that's been my favorite part so far. The weather's finally starting to get warm. So I've heard Rhode Island has a lot of pretty beaches up there as well. But I did go to Mystic, went to a couple other really cute towns that have been really cool. The food out here is really good. So I'm going to continue to explore, but so far so good.
Never mind covering the Connecticut Sun. I always like finding excuses to bring my family out too. Yeah. More to come with Jacy Sheldon talking about her future, which is, if you'll forgive the personal privilege, limitless and in multiple areas. I'm Howard Megdal. You are listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by BetterHelp. And we need to talk a little bit about something that doesn't get talked about enough, which is men's mental health. There were over 6 million men experiencing depression last year alone, and many of them go undiagnosed. I am here to tell you it is okay to not be okay. It's really important you find someone to talk to. A lot of men I know struggle with this. BetterHelp can help you do it as well. With over 35,000 licensed professionals, BetterHelp makes it easy to find a therapist who understands you. You can connect from anywhere, switch therapists at any time, and fit sessions into your schedule with a click. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Howard Megdal here, Locked On Women's Basketball, back with Jacy Sheldon. And so we talked about this right as you were starting the coaching gig at Ohio State. What were your takeaways? What did you learn from it? How did that fit with the project as you think about it of the Jacy Sheldon career arc going forward?
I had a lot of fun. Learned a lot from obviously my coaches that I was coached by at Ohio State. But got to know the girls at Ohio State better, the newbies, and obviously I played with a lot of them, and just kind of got to work with them on and off the floor and help them not only develop their game, but develop them as people and leaders, and that was really cool to see. It was kind of cool to see the game from a different perspective and be their fan and not their teammate, and kind of, be their coach as well, but being able to cheer for them and in a different way. And I think it was a great experience. I learned a lot that even can help me in obviously my performance in game here, but I had a great time and learned a lot from them.
Is there a moment that you have felt like, hey, there's something I grabbed when I was a coach that you were able to integrate into the game? And I asked that, Maddie Segrist has gone through a really similar arc. And year one, she was coaching a lot of the players who were teammates of hers. And then year two, a little bit more of a distance from it, but she started integrating into her W play. And I'm wondering if you've had that moment yet.
I have a little bit, and especially in ball screen work and ball screen coverage. And Katie Smith was at Ohio State, so got to work with her a lot and really learn from, and Carla as well, and learn from both of them and take those skills. And I got to work out with them and work out with the girls. And when you do that, it does slow down. Things do slow down, and obviously being here now, you see it being implemented. So that part was really fun.
the legendary Katie Smith. Glad you get the chance to
absolutely.
work with her regularly. But so now the question, of course, you could do, again, you have a long playing career ahead of you. You have the opportunity to coach. You could do on-air work. There's a lot of different ways in which you have opportunities, which we're all grateful for. Even a few years ago on the WNBA side, this wasn't the case. Does this fit into your long-term thoughts? Are you thinking, gee, I'd like to be a head coach someday?
I don't know. It's definitely an option for next year as well. I'm excited about that. And I think for me, obviously playing basketball as long as I can. And I do want to go into on-air broadcasting eventually, sideline reporting. That's kind of once basketball is all said and done, the direction I wanted to go in. Coaching did make me think for a minute. It's not something I ever really thought about doing long term. And after this past season, I remember going to McGuff and being like, I actually enjoyed this. So I guess we'll see.
It's not a surprise to hear. Let that be your biggest problem, is too much talent in too many areas. But as you sort of isolate on this year and thinking about this year, how do you set those types of goals for yourself? Numbers are harder to do, especially when you're coming off the bench. Some of your role is out of your control. So some of those numbers are like, how do you define that success for yourself?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just being able to affect winning and affect the game on both ends of the floor, and finding ways to do that. And I think, I found my niche kind of defensively, picking up full court, being annoying as I can be, and kind of just disrupting anything that I can. And I think now challenge for me is offensively having that same effect and having the bigger effect on that end of the floor, and being able to obviously knock down shots when I'm open, create for my teammates, and create for myself. So I think that's something that, as my confidence continues to grow here, I think that'll come. But I think, like I said, can continue to control the things that you can. And I think, that'll work out.
Well, I will say, as a point of host privilege, matter of when, not if, till those shots are falling on a regular basis, I've had the ability to watch you grow and develop as a player. Can't wait to see what's ahead. So Jacy Sheldon, I appreciate your time. To our listeners, I appreciate your time. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. More than 340,000 of you showing up last month alone. We will continue to show up for you 6 days a week. Until tomorrow, I am Howard Megdal, wishing all of you a wonderful day.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.